So we have some bad news. House Democrats appear to have learned not a single lesson from the 2020 election results because they're keeping Nancy Pelosi, Jim Clyburn, and Stenny Hoyer atop the House Democratic leadership pyramid for at least another 2 years. Nancy Pelosi, for some reason beyond my comprehension, is going to remain Speaker of the House. Now, we have to remember that going into this election, with a deeply unpopular Republican president and a Republican Congress that has done nothing to help regular people, nothing at all, they were expected to pick up seats. After a big series of gains in 2018, they were expected to win even more this time, polling extremely well. Democrats could only seize defeat from the jaws of victory, and they did. They were expected to win 5, 10, maybe even 15 more seats, and they ended up losing some. They have a very narrow majority now because the Democratic House leadership utterly failed to win close races in swing districts all across the United States, from Florida to California and in between. It was a failure of the leadership. And they all get to stay on board for another 2 years. Now, officially, a lot of these elections haven't happened yet. Speaker of the House isn't formally elected till January. But if Pelosi is elected by the Democrats and the Democrats have a majority, it's almost certainly the case that she will formally be elected Speaker of the House. But the point is that this is a sign that they haven't learned anything, or they're not willing to act upon the lessons they've learned. And it sets the Democrats up really, really poorly for 2022 and maybe even 2024 if this core leadership group stays on. Again, the argument is that, we have to have strong, stable leadership during this difficult time. There's a health crisis. There's a new president. Donald Trump will continue to wreak havoc even after he's gone. There's a Republican Senate, most likely a Republican Senate, unless the Democrats can win both the Georgia runoffs. So we don't want to be experimenting too much in the House. But the point is, it's time for new leadership for a variety of reasons. I'm going to read you an excerpt from Politico reporting on this, and it'll explain part of the problem. Pelosi, 80, and Hoyer, 81, have led the Democratic caucus for nearly 2 decades, with the 80-year-old Clyburn elevated to whip in 2007 after Democrats won the majority, leading some lawmakers to reignite calls for a transition plan to a younger cadre of leaders. Look, we can put aside ideology, and I'm not going to put aside ideology. We're going to be talking about that. But you can put aside ideology and say, why is it that the 3 key leaders of the Democratic caucus are all in their 80s? The Democratic Party has a president, an incoming president, that is in his late 70s, and 3 House leaders that are all older than him. Why? Why is that? Again, even if you're a moderate, even if you're a conservative Democrat, why can't you not see the value, the necessity to at least have some young people at the top of the leadership? Not even young, like people in their 50s. My goodness. Like someone Kamala Harris's age. My goodness. Like, how is this responsible? Even if you felt all 3 of these people were doing a good job, even if, and they're not, but even if, how can you justify these 3 people all in their 80s who have been in these positions forever, continuing to hold them, giving no realistic transition plan for the next 2, 4, 6, and however many years after? It's political irresponsibility to have all 3 of your key House leaders, when you control the House, all be in their 80s. It's totally irresponsible. There's nothing wrong with older people in politics. I'm not one of these people that thinks just because someone's old, they should step aside. That's not my perspective. If one of the leaders was in their 80s, I would say fine. They represent a part of the party. Old people have rights and concerns and needs too. But in a party that depends so deeply, even more than the Republicans, on the votes of younger people, to not have a single person, born in the last 60 years, let alone 50 or 40 or 30 years, be in that caucus is a total failure to represent the party and to represent the people and to represent the constituents of all the districts you represent in the House. It's absurd. And look, I get it. Like, Jim Clyburn is a civil rights icon. I get that Nancy Pelosi as it was a pioneer as the first woman speaker. But there are a lot of women and there are a lot of people of color. There are a lot of black people that are ready and willing across the ideological spectrum to take up leadership in that caucus. So even if you try to play, a diversity card, there are young people that can step into those roles and still make history and continue history representing the diversity of the country and of the Democratic Party. But ideology does matter here, because let's be clear, one of the arguments you heard from a lot of moderate Democrats is that the reason these seats were lost was because of the left, because of defund the police, because of Black Lives Matter, because of Medicare for all, because of a Green New Deal. All these policies, even though Biden ran against those policies, and even though House and Senate leadership ran against all those policies, it was the fault of those policies, supposedly, why Democrats lost seats in the House and didn't pick up enough seats, it looks like, to take control of the Senate. And so the argument is we have to move even more to the right, even more to the center to win consistently in the House. Now, we've explored why that's wrong. Again, not only did no one in the leadership at any level run on those policies, and in fact, they ran against them, but if you look, every single incumbent Democrat that ran on Medicare for all won their seat. And a lot of those people were in deep blue districts, but not all of them were. And all but one of the people that ran on a Green New Deal got reelected. And every single Democrat that lost their seat, at least as of yet, I know not all races are complete, but every Democrat that is confirmed to lose their seat ran against Medicare for all. They explicitly stood against it. They said, I don't support Medicare for all. Maybe I support the status quo or I support Biden's public option, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. They stood against Medicare for all, and it didn't matter. Republicans still beat them in those swing districts. The left did not lose this for the Democrats. AOC, even moderates like Beto O'Rourke, even Jason Johnson, famously anti-Bernie, pundit hack on MSNBC. All of these people have been saying, look, far more important than Medicare for all was the fact that the corporate wing of the party utterly failed to engage with a campaign that worked in the context of social distancing. That if you're not going to door knock, you have to have a really on point online, social media campaign. And they didn't in a lot of these districts. And you don't want to typecast too much, but maybe having three leaders in their 80s limits your ability to really understand 21st century campaigning, especially in this particular context. And people of the AOC generation or of the Jamal Bowman generation maybe are better suited to offer some of that advice, them and their staff and their activists and their most loyal supporters. It's utterly absurd. Look, here's the thing, guys. It doesn't make any sense. Nancy Pelosi is not favored by moderates. Like, I don't get where this is. Like, who likes Pelosi? Moderates don't like Pelosi. Pelosi and Schumer were targeted across Republican ads for being radicals. Everyone says, oh, it was AOC and Ilhan Omar. No, it was Nancy Pelosi that turned off a lot of people. The moderate leadership lost seats. No left-wing Democrat that held the seat lost their seat. Only the moderates lost. The Democrats need to realize that if they want to build a caucus leadership capable of victory in 2 years and in 4 years and beyond, they need to increase the generational diversity and ideological diversity. It does not make sense that all three of your leaders are quote-unquote moderate or center-right Democrats, and it does not make sense that they're all in their 80s. Mark my words, if they continue along this path, they will set themselves up for an absolute clobbering in 2022. And then any hope of getting, good legislation passed under this Biden administration, as unlikely as it is, will be totally gone. And mark my words again, that if they don't learn the lesson that, people want actual fight from the Democratic Party on behalf of the broad, diverse working class, the next Donald Trump will get elected in 4 years, whoever it is, and they will not only be every bit as hateful and anti-democratic as Donald Trump, but they could likely be a lot more competent, and they will be a supreme threat to democracy. And it'll happen all because when the chips were down, the Democrats would rather lose with Pelosi than win with a diverse, energetic group of young progressives. You hate to see it.